Welcome to a new episode of the 7th podcast season of New Female Leaders. My name is Caroline, I'm the founder of New Female Leaders, and today we speak about authentic confidence. What does it have to do with authentic leadership? Well, I'm really excited to have Jacqui Brassey here in the studio. Welcome, Jacqui.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, Jacqui, you do and have done a lot of things. I mean, you have a really impressive resume, but one of the things that you've done is that you wrote a book about authentic confidence together with Nick van Dam and Arjen van Witteloostuijn. And in order to write this book, you've researched the topic confidence extensively. We will later speak about why you wanted to understand this topic so thoroughly. You are an Adjunct Professor at IE University, fellow researcher at the Vrije Universiteit of Amsterdam, and co-leader at the McKinsey Health Institute and Supervisory Board member at Save the Children. Once again, a very warm welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Caroline.
So let's dive in immediately. What is authentic confidence and why authentic and not simply confidence?
Yes, great question. And of course, I get that question very often.
Okay.
People are very curious, what is the difference between confidence and authentic confidence? And for us, the nuance is very different. That extra word makes a huge difference because authentic confidence for us, and the reason why we wrote the book, has to do with the fact that you can become comfortable with discomfort. And in order to become comfortable with discomfort, it requires to authentically get close to what is really going on. And it also means being confident with not knowing things, not knowing the answer. And, we have it, of course, defined in our book, and I can give you a dry definition, but it's really about the right balance between not lacking confidence, not being insecure, but also not thinking that you know everything and running the danger that you become arrogant, could be, or overconfident. It's really about being comfortable with where you are and what you know right now, including shortcomings, including things that are not perfect.
That sounds a bit challenging.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
So what is the idea behind that discomfort, like being comfortable in the discomfortable situations? Like, can you give a few examples? Like, what would be then a discomfortable situation?
Yeah. Well, in order to learn and in order to grow, you actually need to experience a bit of discomfort.
Right.
And it has a lot to do with going out of your comfort zone or doing something that matters to you, but that requires a new skill. And but also facing difficult emotions, which was the reason that I went on this path. And that can be painful, it can be discomfortable. And what we do, uncomfortable, what we do as human beings is that we do not, naturally we do not like it. So we want to move away from it.
Yes.
But if we move away from it, we lose the opportunity to learn and to grow, or we actually have the possibility that we can damage ourselves. If you look at it from an angle of, sometimes people avoid difficult situation and then drink alcohol or something else to just not face the reality. And so the discomfort is needed to grow and to learn and to develop yourself, and to move forward, not to stay stuck in a situation that keeps you where you are, if it's important to you, right? I will explain that later as well. It's all about really knowing what matters to you, making decisions, making choices, and then moving towards that. And on that journey, you may have to face discomfort.
So you mentioned your personal journey, Jacqui. Like I said in the introduction, you have an amazing resume. Like you've done so many amazing things, accomplished so many things that, well, some people might dream of. And then you decide to research confidence. And you said, okay, I have a personal journey related to that. Can you share your journey, some highlights, perhaps some turning points, something that would be
Yes,
great.
yes, for sure. I also have done a TED talk on this topic at INSEAD.
Yeah.
Well, I actually have suffered with low-grade anxiety my whole life. That's part of whatever I brought in my backpack, and also part of my personality a bit. But at some point I experienced that it was increasing, and that was when I joined my current organization many years ago. And I was going out of my comfort zone much more than before. And it led me to cope with the situation that I got into, the out of comfort zone, in a traditional way. So what did I do? I worked harder and harder to just, I have a bit of a perfectionistic character, and I want to do a good job. And I did exactly the things that started to erode my confidence, because working harder meant also that I was forgetting about myself, and I was not taking enough recovery. And so I realized at some point that my potential was not really coming out. I felt like I could do more, but I was just hindered because of this insecurity, and sometimes I would freeze, and I was also at some point a bit tired. And I remember very clearly, I was reflecting on that leading up to our conversation. When was that moment? And I know very much there was this particular moment, and I know roughly the context, but I don't know exactly where I was. But very clearly, I realized, listen, I'm going to do something about this. I'm not going to walk away from it. It felt like this is my thing I need to do. There are lemons, and you can choose to walk away from them, or you make lemonade of it. And I felt very much I need to do something with it and make lemonade, whatever that is. And also not knowing what it would lead to. So it was unknown, but I felt like I want to deal with this, because there is more than I want to give back to the world. And if I don't deal with this, I limit my potential. And so I wanted to research it. I'm a researcher at heart as well as a practitioner. And I wanted to know what is really confidence about, because I noticed at the same time I started to talk about it, there was a bit of a stigma around this topic.
Right.
For people, roughly, two different categories. A group of people that would say this is amazing, and we need more people to speak up, because it's something many people actually suffer with. But there were also people that said, would you not rather hide this? Do you think do you not think this may harm your career? And when I saw that happening, I really also again had another moment of, I don't care, really. I'm going to talk about this because this is a signal. And that's how it started, and ongoing, throughout the years, and I built more knowledge about this, while studying, but also doing a research amongst different groups and professionals, but also working on myself, learning how I could handle this challenge. I found out I was not alone. It's very normal, actually. I also realized, yes, there is a stigma, but I also realized that there is science behind this. It's not a weakness. It's just neuroscience, biology, and it's actually a good thing. I do not want to hide it. It is there, but when it gets in the way of your potential, it's a waste. It's a waste for you, but it's also a waste of society. And I thought, okay, that's this is a journey. This is my journey, and it's still ongoing. We've written it down. I used one approach from clinical psychology that we translated to the business context, and what I added to it was not only research that I did in practice, but also a practical toolkit, because I noticed there was a lot written that I found very inspirational, and people that I admire. I follow a lot of different writers and researchers. But then I found it was often, at the end of the book, I still didn't know what to do.
Right.
And so I wanted to write a book that really was self-empowering, and that could really help you to start taking control, or taking go sit behind your own steering wheel of your own life, basically. And that's what I hope I've done. It helped me. So if anything, if nobody likes it helps me. So it's already a gift for myself. But yeah, I have. I think I get feedback that people also enjoy it. So yeah.
So what were your insights? What have you learned, and how did it help you?
Yeah, so key insights were that it is apart from things that happen in your brain and thoughts that you may have that hold you back, it's also much more holistic, and it's a physical thing as well. And it's about, instead of walking away from fears, it's about facing them. And we have an expression in Dutch that says, the in English it's translating like you never eat the soup as hot as it is served,
Right.
which is something like things are less scary really when you face them, but there's something happening also in your brain and body when you actually face the fear. And it's about building a different connection with the thoughts that you have, and also rewiring your emotions that you may have with certain situations. And so the holistic aspect, the fact that I didn't know that, and I was fortunate to actually work with sleep expert Els van der Helm for a while as well. The fact that if you do not sleep well enough, that will make you more vulnerable for stress and uncertainty is something you don't learn at school. The fact that you can do physical exercises, breathing exercises, that can actually, bring your nervous system more in balance. And so, big surprises along the way. Acceptance, and for me personally, as an individual, self-compassion, being kind to myself.
Yeah.
Which I found that a bit weird and fluffy, and I think that is nonsense. But there's a lot of science behind it. And I once went to a workshop with Kirsten Neff, who's a world renowned expert in this space, going through these exercises. They were magical for me. So the big aha is this holistic part. It's the self-compassion for me personally, and then the other thing is the science. And that was the reason also, Caroline, that I started to go back to university, and I got another medical degree in effective neuroscience, because it was, as a scientist and a researcher, important for me to understand it, but also it helps actually to explain it to audiences that are critical and that feel the stigma for topics like this, including mindfulness, meditation. Often these skills are talked about as soft skills, which they aren't. There isn't science behind it, and we actually increasingly know more and more about it. And that helps people also to open up and to accept it a bit more, even if there are weird exercise. There are a few exercises in this book that some people may find weird. But they work. So I don't care if they're weird. So, but then that's a little bit the but it's much more physical than you think. And the other thing along the way is that it is also more normal than you think, but it's also positive. So when doing research, I learned that stress is needed to actually learn and grow and develop. And so it's all about leveraging the experience that you have and create positive fuel for for growth.
Right.
So, yeah.
So if I may summarize, then we have first of all that it's a holistic approach that surprised you. Like, so it's not only science, but it's also body work. It's meditation. Well, and actually these practices are very much backed by science, but so it's much more multidimensional, I would say. Then there was also something about feeling the fear and doing it anyway, kind of thing, right? So saying yes, we'll talk about that later on a bit more. And then the third thing was, what was the third thing? We had the holistic approach, we had the saying yes, and we had the
The kindness
Yeah,
for me.
the self-compassion, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what I find so interesting is that I completely recognize this also from all the interviews that I've done with the female leaders that I've spoken to, is that it always has been a combination between the clarity, or let's say the cognitive clarity, having the insights, having the knowledge, then the connection to yourself, to your body, to your breath, to your head, to your system, and then and then also having the compassion for yourself and but also for others. Where are you at this point, and kind of accepting that without judgment, and that takes also a lot of courage, which was another C that we found. And then what we haven't talked about, but I think has been important for you as well, is the support, like the community, the people around you that supported you along this journey, right?
Yeah, and actually, when I heard you synthesize the story, I was thinking about um, the health model that we also
Yeah,
have at the McKinsey Health Institute about the brain, the brain health, physical health, social health,
yeah,
spiritual health, and that comes together. So with the physical, I wanted to add, I didn't say that, but it's also about what do you eat and how do you eat,
right.
and how to take care of yourself in a holistic way. The brain is, of course, that is often people forget that it's not something that is separate, that it's cut off here at your shoulders. It's all connected,
Yeah.
and that is very important to remember, and the connection with the heart and the vagus nerve. We all talk about that in the book.
Yeah.
It's very powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, it's super powerful, but it's also something that people hardly ever link to confidence, right? So
Mm.
when we feel insecure, when we're not sure about ourselves, we tend to think about, yeah, I should work harder, or I should know more, or I should be different, or look at that other person who is doing all these amazing things, and it kind of, yeah, you feel your spiral down, basically. And what we often forget is that actually, yeah, having this holistic approach, and taking truly taking care of ourselves on all levels, whether it's physical, mental, spiritual, that is actually kind of one of the primary things we need to do in order to be able to feel confident and to be able to also be, let's say, resilient and agile in that discomfort, right? Because that is, of course, if we're not feeling at ease with ourselves, if there is dis-ease, it's super hard to be flexible in a discomfortable situation.
Yeah. Yeah. No, totally. And as part of that, you do sometimes need to look for discomfort. Not only do difficult things and face your fears, but also as part of that, I bring in the physical aspect again. Go out of your challenge yourself physically.
Mm.
People would enjoy taking cold showers. And it's good for many reasons, but it also builds this stamina and being able to deal with moments that really then matter, and when you have to perform. So this is the moment that you, for example, can freeze, or when you do something difficult at work, or wherever, whatever matters to you. That moment you have to perform, and you can't sit on a pillow and meditate and take care of yourself and sleep and whatever. That's when you need to perform. But that moment is supported by a whole operating model that actually gets you there. It's almost like thinking like a top athlete,
Mm.
and that is not just done in 5 seconds. That is really being intentional about you. So I've also said in the past, authentic confidence is a lifestyle, because it is exactly that, right? It's about knowing who you want to be, how you want to show up, and then setting yourself up for success, which is something that you actively need to work on. It's also part of the model that we translated in the book based on acceptance and commitment training. So that is, it's a muscle that you need to flex.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you call it a lifestyle. I definitely also feel the same. Like it's a verb, you have to you have to do it. It's not something that passively comes to you and then suddenly you feel confident. Just to make this really clear, Jacqui, when you lack authentic confidence, is that similar to the imposter syndrome, or is that different?
Now, it is different. It may be related, but if I explain, in a nutshell, authentic confidence is, the verb is about knowing what matters to you and moving towards that. Along the path towards what matters to you, you may have a couple of challenges, and one of the challenges may be imposter syndrome. Another challenge may be anxiety that holds you back from moving towards what matters to you. Maybe perfectionism. And yes, often people who have imposter syndrome that do not have the authentic confidence skills may therefore move left instead of actually they should have gone right. So there is potentially a correlation, but it does not mean if you have like me, if I still say today, I still suffer with anxiety, but I have authentic confidence skills. And so I can lead a life that matters to me, including this. It's not like I've cut out my anxiety now, so I've solved it. It is part of me. It has a different place and it's become less intense. So imposter syndrome, I also have moments of that. But that's fine. What it doesn't do is stopping me from leading the life that I want or doing the things that, like talking to you, doing this podcast is also, I was a bit nervous for that. And you want to do a good job. That's logical, that you have a little bit of stage fright and think, who am I to talk about this topic? Because I'm always struggling with this myself and so on. But it's not stopping me. I'm here and I'm totally not nervous right now. I'm enjoying it a lot.
Good.
Which also has to do with the way you, of course, welcome us, welcome me. And it's a wonderful conversation. But they can go together. So imposter syndrome, anxiety, perfectionism, they can be part of the similar of families that, they are related, but they're not exactly the same as the opposite of authentic confidence. They can coincide.
Right. And practicing all the tools that you are also describing in your book, Authentic Confidence, actually helps you to do so, right? It's actually a huge toolkit to then feel the fear and do it anyway. And this was also such an important tip that I got from so many female leaders, that they told me, okay, when people ask you the question, do you want to be part of this project? Do you want to join the board for this or that, or supervisory job here or there? Very often our first reaction is, well, similar to what you just mentioned. Who am I to do this? Am I good enough? Will I be able to manage this in the time that I have? All these things. And they all said to me, we should say yes. Just say yes, and you will manage. You will be. What is your idea on that?
Yeah, I have. I say yes, but
okay,
Caroline, I think. You have to definitely, saying yes is one of the tools in my book. Shonda Rhimes is very famous for a book around the topic. And so we included it also in our book as a tool. But what is very important is that you also think about the why.
Right.
Saying yes, should you not want to have a purpose for the yes? Because you can say yes to 20,000 things, which means there are a lot of other things you say no to. So that's a core. Say yes, but think very much about the why, and that also makes it more bearable when it then becomes tough. That's my but.
Yeah. That's a very important. But I would say you mentioned the word purpose. How are authentic confidence and purpose related?
Oh, very much. They are, purpose is at the heart of it, actually. So we have six processes, or processes is actually the word that acceptance and commitment training or therapy uses. We call it practices because we want to show a bit more about the possibility and the self-empowerment, and that it is a verb.
Mm-hmm.
One of the practices is about purpose and values, and purpose is basically one of the tools that we have included is ikigai, which
Yeah.
is about the reason to wake up in the morning. But there are other tools. There's also a tool that talks about how can you get more from a socialized mind into the self-authoring mind. The work from Bob Keegan, and purpose is another tool, which is really about what matters to you, and then values. It's a simple exercise of which values matter to me, and by regularly reflecting on that, and then making a top 5 or a top 10, because sometimes you come at the T, how do you say that, across in the road, and you
Mm-hmm.
need to go left or right. You need to make difficult decisions. Then your values and your purpose can guide you to either go left or right, but sometimes they conflict with each other. And then, then it's a question also about, okay, how do I make decisions? How do I prioritize them? But it's at the heart, and it's also at the heart because if you then apply in real life settings the other tools and the other practices, then they help you guide make decisions. So if, for example, acceptance is another practice, and there are different ways of building acceptance, having your purpose and your values in the back of your mind helps you to the reason why you face difficulty, helps to make you decide to lean in instead of leaning back, etc. So it's basically a foundation. It is said that you use the practices. There is no starting and no end. But if you would ask me where would you start, I would start there, and I would keep that very sharp in my window screen. I have a vizier. I'm looking for another word for that, but I would. It's an anchor basically, and it helps you to stay steady in the middle of a storm. I mean, there's a lot happening currently in the world, and a lot happening also if you go through life. In different phases of life, may be shaky, and so purpose is your guidebook. In a way.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Having that clear, having your values clear, definitely is one of the starting points. I would say um, for being able to stand firmly in those discomfortable situations that you mentioned earlier. You also mentioned that there is a positive side of
Yeah.
self-doubt or lacking confidence. So what is the positive side? Because
Yeah. Yeah, why would you not want it, right?
yeah.
It's a sign that something matters to you.
Ah,
So it
okay.
is information, right? If you have self-doubt or you're nervous, then there's something that makes a difference to you that is important.
Right.
It's also an important alert. So it tells you something. And what can it tell you? And so and the moment you do something new, you will experience it. So and that's also a physical reaction. That's biology. If you go out of your comfort zone, I mean, we are wired to. Human beings want predictability. And if something is unknown, so we go out of the comfort zone, then our brains go on alert. And for some people, it goes a bit stronger than for others because we have different personalities also, but we're wired in a different way. And I mean, there are three things basically. I explain that in my book, based on the latest science by Lisa Feldman Barrett. How do you feel, the body budget? What do you bring in your backpack, your concepts, but also your context? And
Mm-hmm.
those work together. And sometimes you go on alert, and sometimes it's different when you're at home with your loved ones in a safe environment, and than it is, for example, if you need to be in front of a boardroom. But the worries or the insecurity or stress that is related to it is a signal. But it also is needed when you learn something new. There is a lot of stuff happening inside your body. So a combination of hormones and focus actually helps you to learn new things. And so it is okay, it's necessary, and everybody on a daily basis probably goes to different phases from comfort zone to stress but the trick is that you don't stay too long in that space of heightened stress and we also call it the protection zone, but that you learn with authentic confidence, you learn to go into a learning zone, which is still increased stress, but then still creating the space where your brain can still stay open and where you still can learn new things, but also perform at your best. And we talk about that as well, that you intentionally create space to recover so that you actually can do that. So stress is a good thing. And I think it's important that we also say that, because we also see that in the pandemic, a lot of people talk about how horrible it is and we need to avoid stress at all costs. No, of course not, because then, that is also not good. Actually, if you don't have stress at all, you can be bored and also can go into a burnout, I would say. But it's so it's the balance is important, and the worries that you'll have if it becomes an issue where you really have anxiety and panic attacks and it hinders your life, that's another story, right? And it can become also a mental illness. Then you need to get help also from a professional. But in the normal course of a day, little moments of stress, actually it's just a wonderful advisor, because something matters. So if I'm nervous for a presentation that I need to do at work, it means something. And for me, it means that I want to do a good job. It means that I don't want to fail because I may be afraid of then getting a bad performance review, for example. There's so much going on in this iceberg below, right? What you believe is true. But that's fine. It can be there. But it's not fine if it stops you from reaching your potential. And that's basically where we come in with this book.
So when you started practicing authentic confidence skills, right? And when you started to practice what you're preaching, how did it change your leadership, or did it change your leadership at all?
Yeah, a lot actually. But it's not, that is also, I wanted to say yes, and it's not easy. And I will explain what I mean with that, because I made a decision to be open about this and to talk about it. And people often don't believe it because they see me and they think, you don't have anxiety, you don't have insecurity, because that's not how you come across. And of course, I now know how to handle it, and I'm also comfortable in my skin, and I'm very okay with who I am and what I can do and so on. But one promise that I made was I want to actually lead in an authentic way, which means that I also want to be transparent about moments where I do not know the answer. And that sounds easier said than done if you, but it's a new leadership style, of course, that I think I'm sandwiched between different generations. Generations ahead of me don't lead like that per se, right? It was not always done. Where you look at new generations, it's a very different ball game. And so in this transition generation where I may sit, it's very challenging also, because it's the vulnerability that comes with authentic leadership, with showing that you don't always know the answer, makes it become a leadership style that's much more based on informal leadership and on relationship building, and making sure that inclusion focus, making sure all voices go to the table. But in that process, come to the table and participate. But in that process, you have to deal with what's going on for you as well.
Right.
And that is not always easy, because it's scary to sometimes say that you do not always know and that is encouraging. One other reason why I'm saying it's scary is also that you still need to navigate the stigma that honestly still exists around topics like anxiety or insecurity. Mental health is another one, and you need to be ready for that. So that is it's a skill and an art actually, and you need to be ready for potential consequences that are related to it. So when I started to talk about it, and I knew that not everybody would look at it in a positive way, I was ready to go and do something else. I thought, this is what I want to do. And so if people do not appreciate me in this context anymore because I show my vulnerabilities, then I'll go to another place where it is appreciated. And I really made peace with that. And then, it does miracles actually, because indeed I'm still around and I'm doing a lot of things. But that's the thing. So the leadership style has changed for me. I've become much more open about getting the elephant in the room and addressing that.
Mm-hmm.
It's so liberating. And you know what? It gave me actually much more confidence than before, where I was hiding it and trying to look at my best and not showing any flaws. It brings a lot of energy, and it actually, the result of it, it connects. People enjoy it much more and feel relieved, and it's much easier to build relationships. So yeah, it has been a journey for me, but there's no way back. So I don't want to be on the way. Yeah.
I love how you make this connection between authentic confidence and authentic leadership, and also that you mentioned transparency, because that's one of the most important dimensions also in authentic leadership, where it's not so much about, well, it's first of all, it's knowing who you are and having that self-awareness and those values and purpose and the things that we mentioned earlier. But then definitely it's about that transparency and that being open towards others and like you said, being vulnerable. What is your view on when we look at future leadership? And I mean, there is, like you said, there is a stigma around that being vulnerable as a leader. And I also figure that, especially as for women, since we are already, well, we're still an anomaly when it comes to leaders, and a lot of people still think about a male person when they think about a leader. I think it's perhaps even more challenging to open up and to say, hey, I don't know everything. So, yeah, coming back to my question, it helped you a lot. It gave you actually more confidence. Looking at future leadership, do you think this should be, a part of it?
Yeah, no, I think it's essential. And so there's a couple of things that I was reflecting on when you were posing the question. I mean, vulnerability, it's not about just throwing everything on the table for vulnerability's sake. It is not about sharing everything because it is, it is really, if you actually do it in a way that you come to the table with care for yourself and for the people that are there, and for really seeing other people, and thinking also about what is the purpose of me sharing. There may not be a reason for it, but if the intention is there to do something, to create something good with the team that you're working with, and to really also see the value in other people that are there, which you actually can only do if you are no longer busy with yourself. Because in a way, the lack of confidence is also it can be very selfish, right? It's all about I'm insecure and I can't do this. It's all about me. That's another thing. There was another aha that I thought it's actually a bit. It's being busy with yourself, but not being busy with what we want to do. What we want to create, and what is the beauty of this person that's here that brings something to the table, and the beauty of that person, and that's a process that goes beyond the ego, and that goes much more to what are we trying to create with kindness and compassion. And in that softness and in that vulnerability, there is a strength that actually creates respect, and that is different than the whole debate between the male and the female leader. It is bigger than that. It is interesting to see that, and also it's not only the male with feminine and masculine leadership. I don't think it's only men and women. I think you had a few podcasts about that as well.
Absolutely.
The qualities that we are emphasizing, and I've seen the most inspirational male leaders in that context, as well as female leaders. But it is really about seeing yourself and others. And I think that's in the heart what it is about. People want to be seen and appreciated, and that creates the bond. But also you need to see yourself and appreciate yourself in the mix. And when one of the two are out of balance, then there is a potential for friction in the team setting or in the relations that you're trying to build. I don't know if that comes across, if that's an answer to what you were going for, but it is. I think the essence is in the vulnerability. There's also a purpose, and it's not a vulnerability for vulnerability's sake, and that gives actually strength. So it's the groundedness that comes out of it. That is actually replacing the masculine strength that comes from muscles. That is. It's not easy to put words on it. But
well, it also definitely sounds like it's more real, right? We speak about authentic, but it's what is really going on here right now in this present moment, where and I also think that intention, the word you use a few times, is super important there. So it's also like having that intention super clear. Where do we want to go together? What is our joint purpose? And then as a leader, acknowledging that you're doing this together and not and that it's not about you running the show or having to pull everyone forward or push everyone forward. And I also think that there's a lot of strength in accepting for yourself what are the points that you're not very good at, and what are the things that you don't know, right? And putting that forward also gives, I think, an amazing example within a team. Like, okay, guys, guys, okay, we are doing this together, and what I don't know, you might know, and that there's also kind of transparency and willingness for everybody to stand in their own potential and their own strength, right? And not having to hide their the things that they're less capable of.
Yeah, and that also links to I once also wrote a piece about that, the inclusion paradox, and how inclusion actually also requires courage, because and you can again look at that from a neuroscience perspective. If something is not familiar to us and somebody is not familiar to us or speaks a different language or looks different, that may actually consciously or unconsciously cause a bit of a reaction or a threat, and we want to move away from it. We like to be with the people that are a bit like us, and so it takes conscious effort also to appreciate the diversity in a team. And I'm not talking about only physical diversity or diversity in gender. It's also about neurodiversity. It's really at the highest level about how can we make sure that all the richness of what is in the room comes to the table, because purely diversity is not leading to better performance in itself. It's more complicated than that. It's also about leveraging the diversity. It's also about what tasks are we trying to do, especially if you want to do creative tasks, for example, and innovation. But it's more than that. But in order to do that, it requires, if you're honest to yourself, it requires courage. And the other thing, in the presence of authentic confidence and also authentic confidence as a team, conflict is a good thing. And people also think conflict can be very bad. It is not bad at all. If you have the right context and the right environment, then it's actually a very good thing. And so it lifts it to another level. But in order to create that, it starts. If you talk about authentic leadership, it starts with the leader itself, and also it's ongoing work. The other thing I want to add is also, and that's where the compassion comes in. And I remember we had a conversation about that also leading up to today. Compassion and the kindness for the fact that this is a journey and that it is, some days are going well and other days are not going well. And this is a dynamic process because there are so many factors as a leader that are influencing where you are and where your team is. And some factors are, you can do something about, and others you cannot. And one day it goes well, the other day it goes not so well for many reasons. Can be, and then being kind to yourself along the way is very important as well, because we're all humans eventually. So that does help me on my journey. So what I
do you have an example, like a moment or?
Oh yeah, well, tons. Tons of it, but when you are, for example, when you are tired and a lot is happening, and sometimes you feel like everything is happening at the same time, it can still be that I have a moment of frustration and that I shout, or that I feel sad and that I cry, and that is fine. That is just, it's also normal. So that's also part of it. The real thing is part of it, but it's not something that if that happens, then it's fine, and just you move on. And I wish it could be more part of who we are in general as human beings. I mean, I guess you see it more when you are with friends. You're in a comfortable environment, and we care for each other the way we are. But we leave it. It's almost as if we leave ourselves at the door when we go into a professional context, or when we are at work, and acknowledging that we cannot just switch off who we are is not a new concept. I'm sure you have spoken about it in a podcast before, but it's all part of confidence as well. It's part of authentic confidence as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking about that working environment, what we do see a lot in organizations is that there is a, let's say, striving culture, performance culture. You have to reach the targets. You have to, how is that affecting authentic confidence in leaders, but also in your workforce?
Yeah, it's a good thing. I think that you have performance targets and that you have to achieve something, right? I mean, businesses are there for a specific purpose, and things need to be delivered.
Yeah.
However, the way you do it, and that is also something that we saw in a recent study that we did in the McKinsey Health Institute in 15 countries, representing 70% of the working population. So we have a lot of data behind this.
Yeah.
Is that the way, the culture that you build, and elements at different levels of the organization level, team level, and individual level, around health and well-being for employees. It really depends a lot of how it impacts eventually outcomes for employees. So and what we found, negative outcomes for employees, for example, including burnout and anxiety and distress, are very strongly influenced by toxic workplace behavior, lack of inclusion, and lack of balance, work-life balance. So if you look at then how does it influence performance? Well, in organizations where you have this going on, it is a bad thing. On the other side, if you have inclusion, that's also what we found, psychological safety, a growth environment, sustainable work environment, then that drives a positive outcome. So performance culture in itself is not a bad thing, because that's why businesses are there. Things. It's as simple as that, but it's the how. How do you then subsequently create an environment where people can thrive, or do you? If you don't do that, then people will not thrive, and so that is a choice that organizations can make. And that has very much to do with the safety and the inclusion and positive behavior and potentially also confidence. Because one of the things that we also found is that people that have skills like authentic confidence are much better able to actually buffer a stressful work environment. And at the same time, and so others who don't are more vulnerable. At the same time, Caroline, people who have these skills are 60% more likely to leave organizations that have a bad working culture. So you will lose your great people, right, if you do not really take care of this. And I want to add to that is also what we see is that we see that especially, of course, for everybody this is important, but we see it increasingly becoming important for Generation Z, the young generation that's entering the workforce now. And in 5 years will make up about estimation of 30% of the workforce. They actually find it very important that organizations take care of these topics and employee health and well-being. And even more so, they already select organizations where they want to potentially work or not on the basis of this information. So it's important that organizations take care of this. And what I want to add is I wrote this book, co-authored this book with my wonderful co-authors, focused on empowering myself. This was my journey, and then this was really about how do we now translate it to give back. And so it was about focusing the individual and ourselves, because sometimes you find yourselves in environments that are not positive, and how can you then still, irrespective of what environment you're in, maximize your potential to thrive.
Exactly.
So that's the focus of this book. However, we very much acknowledge also in this book and the foreword of Jan Zijdeveld, one of the contributors to this work, actually also emphasizes that. So yes, you can do a lot as an individual, empower yourself, but as an organization and as leadership of an organization, you have also the responsibility to create these environments where people thrive. And then you bring two things together. And Amy Edmondson, who's well known for psychological safety, said it beautifully. She also endorsed our book. She said it beautifully. At some point, I heard her say psychological safety and courage are two sides of the very same valuable coin. So this is really about the individual, but there's of course more. And when I just explained performance culture, how does that impact or not confidence? It's that interplay. It's what is the environment that you create as an organization, and also what are the skills that you give to individuals. So it's up to the organization. Is it going to hinder or help people thrive? So it's not a bad thing in itself, but it really depends on the execution.
Yeah, and what I find so beautiful, Jacqui, is that that's actually also then a dimension of authentic leadership, that you not only are able to be yourself, know yourself, being transparent with regards to yourself and your values, but definitely also create an environment where others can be do the same actually, and where there is inclusiveness, and where there is space for making mistakes and giving feedback, both positive and negative. So I think there's this, coming back to my introduction, where I said, okay, so what is the relationship between authentic confidence and authentic leadership? I think they're super and very much integrated and linked to each other. And I can definitely recommend for everyone to read your book, dive into all the tools that you and your co-authors provide. And I really want to thank you for this amazing interview. Do you have anything you want to leave us with?
Yeah, one last thought I have is thank you for endorsing the book, of course, and telling people, asking people, inviting people to read it. My last thought is I believe strongly you owe it to yourself. And it is also an important topic for your health and well-being. It is more than just confidence itself. It's really about leading a life that matters to you. So thank you, Caroline, for inviting me and for this wonderful conversation. I feel like we could go on for hours.
Yes, we definitely could. The good news is that we also have a giveaway, thanks to you, on behalf of Jacqui. You can win, of course, her book, Authentic Confidence. If you want to win, make a print screen of this podcast, post it on your Instagram stories, and tag us, New Female Leaders, and Jacqui Brassey. That's at Jacqui_Brassey. And then we will share it with our communities. Do this before March 31st, 2023. And we will pick a winner after that date. Jacqui, once more, thank you so much. We will definitely continue our conversation. I'm pretty sure about that. And I want to thank you for listening. If you're listening via Spotify, we would love it if you could give us a ranking. You can do that on your phone right next to our logo. Super easy, takes you only 1 second. Thank you so much, and catch you in the next episode.
Thank you.